Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Top of the morning. So glad that you could join us for another exciting conversation. Actually, a follow-up for Mr. Felix Medina on a conversation we had a couple of months ago. So we'll say back by popular demand. Not only that, we'll hear a couple of words of excitement about, the World Cup and all the excitement around FIFA. I know when we talked a little bit ago, you were just heading off to lead some efforts in that area. I'm sure that was very exciting as well. So thank you again, Felix, for joining us again for our topic today, which is the future of leadership in a diverse team. So certainly we've talked about, diversity in a lot of spaces, but even with our conversation, good morning, even with our conversation last month about generations in the workplace, there are lots of aspects of a diverse leadership team, and certainly hearing more about that is going to be great. So when we're done, we'll certainly talk more about other things that are going on as relates to the Diversity Roundtable. I'll mention now and remind you again that our conference is just around the corner on the 22nd of September. We have a phenomenal conference plan. So if you're on this call and somehow don't know about it, please make sure you reach out directly because we've been pushing out some content, sharing the exciting speakers and others that are going to be joining us for our conference. It's going to be a great conference. Even our future is going to be exciting in terms of other speakers and presentations and partnerships we'll have. So anyway, just wanted to a quick plug on that. But at that, I would say, Felix, as they say, the man that needs no introduction, back from our previous content and here to tell us all about the future of leadership in a diverse team, Mr. Medina. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I am trying to share with you presentation for today. So just allow me a couple of minutes. Um,
Yes, sir.
I sent a request to Ezel and he accepted. We'll just take a couple more seconds here, loading the document.
You all set? We can't hear you, Felix. I think you
Oh,
just
I'm
went.
sorry.
Okay, there you go.
I did the COVID thing, the typical COVID thing. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me again. Azel, Diversity Roundtable, Central Indiana. Thank you so much, everybody who came last time. Those who are new, welcome. Those who are back, welcome back. Again, my name is Felix Medina, and I wanted to apologize. I took a contract with the World Cup, and for 2.5 months, I've been working nonstop, and I'm absolutely out of not only out of breath, out of energy, and my throat's on fire, so I have a little cough. Anyways, I'm recovering, just put it that way. So just bear with me, and I apologize for that inconvenience, maybe in my voice or some breaks. I'll be stopping to cough. Anyways, so glad everybody's here and you guys were able, ladies and gentlemen, able to be here. The future of leadership in a diverse team. And basically, what we'll be talking about is the communication across cultures, generations, and teams. And this is provided by El Capitan Consulting, which is a consulting firm that I own. And you probably, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you probably already know what are we up to. It's super important to realize that the future belongs to leaders who can communicate and not only communicate like anybody does, but clearly and to know how to communicate with people that are different from themselves. And here I would like to stop just a little bit because sometimes I feel that when I enter a room, particular individuals or leaders just by looking at me they probably assume things and they don't know how to communicate with me. They feel awkward, and I would say about that immediately don't assume anything, because one of the things that happens to me quite a bit is that people may assume I either don't speak English or that I am new to the area or things like that, and I am not. I've been in Indiana for 20 years. I believe I speak English just fine, and things like that that may come to our minds. We should be able to work with that. So when we lose that assumption, we're able to function better and just assume that the person is just like you. So definitely keep that in mind. I'm sorry I'm scrolling like this. This is not the way we should present, but otherwise it freezes for some reason. So we're just going to continue doing it like that. So, what is this session about? This session is not about corporate jargon. This session is about leadership, communication. This session will be about trust. It will be about the evolution of the workforce in different fields, particularly focus in our experiences here in Central Indiana. This session will be about business performance and how can you improve your own office environment or your corporation environment. So once again, welcome. We know that the workforce has changed, and feel free to interrupt me with any questions if you have one. Just raise your hand or interrupt me. We're fine. We should be fine with time.
Got a question,
Yeah, go
but
ahead.
I don't see the slides at the moment.
You don't see the
I don't know if
slide?
you're sharing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't see him either.
Oh, wow. I'm so glad you said that because I thought that I was given the thumbs up. My apologies. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for saying something because this has happened before where I just continue presenting and nobody says anything. So at least once or twice in the last couple of years it has happened. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, it's not in presentation mode if you wanted it in that.
Yeah, as I said, when I put presentation mode, it freezes for some reason.
Oh, okay, got you.
So that's why I'm not doing it like that. But thank you also for the nudge. So, anyways, we were here. Once you said I can't see anything, we were around here, what this session is and what this session isn't. So we'll just thank you again. We'll move to the third slide, which is the workforce has changed. So what do we see now? We see that we have teams that are heavily multilingual, that are very diverse, and that speak multiple languages. That's something that we've seen in cities like Atlanta or cities like Miami, New York, LA, Chicago. It's a little bit more consistent, but in Indianapolis, it is happening. And if you were present in the last presentation, we talked about statistics, and we have 100,000 Latinos approximately in the Indy metro area. So it's quite a bit of people. Not as much as perhaps in the Atlanta metro area, which is 1 million Latinos, believe it or not, which is about the population of Indianapolis in Latinos, but still is a lot of people for a Midwest city. Something else that has changed in the workforce is the faster turnover. Younger generations are moving quickly because they're not finding what they want. And definitely, if you are from that younger generation and you're present, definitely we would like to hear your input on this. Remote collaboration since COVID has been ramping up. In some other companies, they went down to or back to office. Some other companies are hybrid, etc. But there is a lot of remote collaboration regardless, and teams are connecting across not only the states, but different time zones, different countries, different cultures, etc. I was just telling Ezel that working for FIFA in the World Cup, just in my operations room where I was located, there were approximately 100 people. We all overlapped at certain point throughout the whole World Cup. And from those 100 people, there are approximately 65, 75 different nationalities. And one thing that really struck was that I was not expecting this. Again, back to the expectations and the assumptions. But I would say 80 to 90% of the people I spoke with spoke Spanish. And for me to see leaders from Asia or from Africa or from Europe in general, just FIFA leaders speaking perfect Spanish to me was very touching and was very welcoming to me because I was not expecting it. So just things like that that really make, in this case, I would consider me an employee or a subcontractor. So in this type of scenario, just that right there spoke volumes to me because I felt, wow, I would love to work for FIFA again. I mean, who else is more obsessed about soccer than Latinos overall? And I felt seen. That's what I wanted to say. Other things that have changed in the workforce will be that we do have higher expectations as employees. And there is quite a bit of emotional intelligence and trust. And that matters way more to the newer, younger generations than perhaps it used to be. So that connection between human beings and that trust in the office or the work environment is highly needed and will highly motivate the employees to continue staying there and not fall into that turnover. I'll continue advancing a little bit. What it looks like when we talk about old leadership versus modern leadership. You think about perhaps I am 43 years old, so I overlap a little bit with generations, but I do remember like my parents' generation and still when I got my first couple of jobs, and still it happens, that the way to manage the company and the way your boss, supervisor, or the leaders of the company are just speaking to you or how they deal with the day-to-day interaction with you, it's based a lot of times on controlling, on fear of the unknown, that they just don't know you, they don't know your culture, they don't know much about you in general. And there's a hierarchy, which for them it feels like, oh, I am your boss, so I am better, or I am your boss, so that means that you don't have a say, or you understand what I'm trying to say here. In versus the new type of leadership that I will call modern leadership, which it's more about creating clarity when you're talking with somebody and being very clear with your communication, being very clear with the expectation, being very clear with the milestones that you're setting for your team, and very clear. And these are the objectives that we have as a team or as a group. And for you to communicate that properly and to always go back with your team and be like, we're clear on this, right? This is where we headed. And for that, you definitely need to build some trust. There has to be trust, and the trust cannot be built when you go back to those old ways. When you try to control somebody, or when you fear somebody, or you create them to fear you, you cannot create trust that way. Trust is earned differently, right? It's how you're treating the person. Modern leadership requires a lot of adaptability. In this case, back to the FIFA example, something really popped and struck me that I don't know if you were following with the World Cup, you followed that a big part of it was press conferences. So press conferences were done before the match, one day before, and were done right after the match was over, immediately. And what happened during this World Cup was very fascinating that we got the contract for the language operations. So think about any translation of document, any interpretation for any player, coach, any staff member that wanted to speak at the press conference. His words, her words needed to be interpreted into another language for everybody to understand. So something that happened during this World Cup was that a player knew Spanish, even though that was not his first language or second language, but he has played in Spain a significant amount of time, so his Spanish was solid. And the journalist asking the question was from Spain. So he said, I want to ask the question in Spain, even though there was no Spanish interpretation provided. It was just in other two different languages, which is what FIFA paid for. After he attempted to ask the question in Spanish, this individual, I would say the FIFA representative, didn't allow that to happen because he said, we don't have interpretation to Spanish at this moment. Nobody's going to interpret, and we all want to understand, which is a fair point. But after that, because there was not an allowance to do that, and the player wanted it and said, I'm perfectly fine, I can answer in Spanish, whatever, etc. FIFA got a lot of heat and it went viral and it was on social media. And if you were following with all the World Cup, you understand what I'm saying, that a lot of FIFA not giving Spanish the importance that it deserves, even though we already know, I told you that most people speak Spanish, etc. But something for me pretty magical happened, and we go back to that adaptability, is that FIFA changed. They said from now on, not only all languages will be interpreted into English and whatever another language is utilized at the table there at the press conference, but now since, whatever day that was, July 7th or whatever, we will make it mandatory. Everything will be interpreted in Spanish and English. And I thought that was pretty bold because the amount of, not only the amount of money invested, but also just think about that subtle change, how it changed all the press conference in 16 stadiums. And obviously for a company like ours that provides interpreting, that was great when it comes to business, yes. But what I liked was, and back to that point, adaptability. Sometimes throughout the process, you'll find out that you need to adapt better and to have the guts to say, we did this in a particular way because we thought it was good, but we realized it wasn't perhaps the best. So now we can move on from that process and we can accommodate better and keep going. And that was very well received. I'm sorry it took so long to explain that, but I really wanted to pinpoint a very clear, real scenario that just happened, for example. And we'll continue moving. Most companies do not have a talent problem. They have a communication and trust problem. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? Employees want respect, clarity. They want better mental health. They want consistent communication with the supervisor or the boss. They want leaders who listen to them. And what is the cost of not doing these types of things? Well, there's going to be confusion, disengagement. There's going to be a high turnover, like we were talking about, obviously low trust, and there's poor accountability, which creates poor results for you and your team. Cultural friction, for sure. So people rarely disconnect overnight. This is a process that happens through time, and they disconnect slowly through repeated communication failures. So this is just an example of one of those failures, right? You don't communicate clearly, then the employee or the colleague just doesn't know what to do next. They're afraid to talk or to ask questions. They disengage, and then they simply just don't know where are we going? What's the direction of this company? What's the direction of my career, etc. You can put any excuse there, and it will create that person to leave. So every breakdown in trust follows a pattern, and we need to be able to recognize it early, and that will be, I would say, applying great leadership when you do that. What other things great leaders do differently? I love this. They listen first. And this is something that I keep repeating myself a lot when I talk to people because I talk to people for work. Basically, that's what I do as a consultant. So sometimes I feel the urge of talking first, and that's not perhaps the best way to work with somebody. It's actually listening first. So understanding and processing what the other person is saying and actually paying attention before responding really creates a different conversation. And I know it sounds really dumb to say that, but when you pay attention to the day-to-day interactions in your office or whatever you're doing, you realize that the majority of people are not doing that. They're not listening first. They're just listening to talk immediately. And I've done even little tests where I'm saying things and I can tell that they're just waiting and waiting and waiting for them to speak again. I was like, I have no idea what you just said. That was completely unrelated. And it's so important to listen first and to really let it swirl in your mind before you have a response to it. I think people feel that, and that creates a very different interaction and experience with the other human being. Communicating clearly, no ambiguity, no assumptions, staying consistent to build that trust through reliability. When you have a team and you're constantly telling them like, hey, we're gonna work together and we're gonna keep each other accountable, and there's a system for it, and there's a constant communication that is very clear, where everybody's listening to each other, things will function well, believe me. And that build will keep on building. And I mean, that trust will keep on building and you'll build more and more trust. And my favorite, lead with EQ. What's EQ? It's a term that we use for emotional intelligence, which I'm assuming all of you or most of you already know and understand. When it comes to emotional intelligence, I go to one of the pioneers, Dale Carnegie. He wrote a quote that I really like, probably his most famous quote. He said, open quote, when dealing with people, remember you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but rather creatures of emotion. If you really think about that, in our society, in the country where we live, everything is based out of logic, but too little work has been done regarding emotion. And human beings are emotion first, then logic. So to understand how what you're saying is being felt gives you such a leverage that you can utilize for the room to make the room better and more positive. So I used to work with this colleague of mine that used to tell me people always remember how you make them feel, and that's it. They'll remember you if you make them feel good. And it's so simple, right? And so basic, but yet so powerful to think about that. So always think about that when you're talking in a room or dealing with employees, dealing with clients, etc. Just think about your words and the effect they have on others. There is a really good guy, and you can take notes of this because unfortunately I didn't put it on the slide. But there's a really good guy whose name is Mark England. England, as in the country, Mark Mark, and he talks. His whole business model is basically focused on words and how to utilize words. So it's quite fascinating. I was able to meet with him in one of his journeys and shared some really good couple of days with him, just really soaking all his knowledge. And his company is Procabulary, so it's like vocabulary, but it's pro and then cabulary. And I really recommend you to look at his content because it basically tells people how to talk. And I know it sounds really, again, basic and kind of primitive, but God, it's so important to understand the magic and the power behind your words. I think we're closing in with a couple more slides and then we're done. I think I'm running a little bit over your time and I apologize for that. Something very new that we tend to look at and we talk about a lot lately will be CQ and AI, two different things. Cultural intelligence, CQ. It's something that make leaders stay curious and ask questions. Cultural intelligence is about avoiding assumptions, as we said all throughout this presentation. And also, cultural intelligence is about your communication style needs to adapt to the receiver. So you cannot communicate the same way that you communicate to a 5-year-old, to a 10-year-old, to an 18-year-old, to a 20-year-old, a 65-year-old. And it's just, it changes, and you need to be able to cope with the situation change. There is no model for it. You just gotta be, again, culturally intelligent and emotionally intelligent to know how to went to a particular person. High CQ leaders will build bridges across cultures. They just simply know. And this is one of the things that I observed during the FIFA World Cup is so many people working at that level pushes everybody in the room and pushes the whole organization and the subcontractors working with it to be better and to be better every day. So if you are executing at that level, you're able to pull people around you. And if they're doing it too, it just creates this synergy and this ball of fire. It's a dynamo that really creates magic. I mean, it really does. So think about the places where you can go with your team or with your company when everybody is talking this type of language or utilizing this type of vocabulary. Definitely, when it comes to AI, I can tell you that AI will not ever replace trust and empathy. And this is where you win. This is where you can live and win. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And it will not replace the human connection that you have and the leadership that you can show to others. So this must be your specialty versus artificial intelligence is to be there, to be present, right? AI is something that you find in a system, in a computer, it's digital. You, however, can be present and can make people feel. And that is very particular to us human beings. So use AI to empower your team. However, know that there is quite a bit of difference between what you can do and what AI can do. And I think it's good. It's good to help employees leverage their own work and do better work. We utilize AI tremendously in our own company and consulting firm, and we use it to help our own clients as well. So definitely use it. One of my favorite dudes out there. I just follow this guy and I love this guy. And if you're on LinkedIn or if you're a YouTuber or if you follow YouTubers, whatever, you know Gary V. Gary V is amazing. He's a master marketer and a businessman. Just really cool dude. You should follow him. And he has a quote: "AI is a weapon, and you must start using it every day." This is a Mount Rushmore level shift. And everyone's life is going to be completely engulfed by this technology. This is electricity. So, what do we do with this electricity is up to us. We can utilize this AI. And I know there's a lot of resistance to it. Believe me, I'm right there with you. I'm not an AI fan. I have my own things and my own doubts and questions, and it's happening, right? Just yesterday, I was reading an article with the New York Times about an AI who went into a library and took information without asking. So definitely will present us with challenges. But anyways, use it because it's a Mount Rushmore level shift, and you should be part of it. We're almost done here. Bear with me with the last couple of slides. Future of leadership is not just about our authority. It's way more than that. And what's the clearest win for all the leaders is that you should not be the loudest. You should be the clearest. And also remember that vulnerability is a strength, and you should utilize it for you and your team. Vulnerability can create beautiful things around your own workforce. So leaders can be vulnerable too. That's perfectly fine. There's something I can ask from you is to be more and execute more awareness, more adaptability, more humanity, more observation, and more intentional communication. I am wrapping up this presentation. I thank you all for coming. If you haven't done so, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I am highly active. Every 2 days, I'm posting something. You can utilize this QR code to connect with me. And if you want to write down one of these 5 questions or the 5 questions, please do. These are good takeaway questions that will help you and your team improve for the next couple of your milestones. And with that, I wrap up and I'm open for questions, comments, or anything else.
Well, thank you. We certainly have time for some dialogue and some questions. We've got a few minutes. I do see Andrew with his hand raised, so we'll certainly start there.
Yes. Good morning, Felix. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. One thing that continues to stand out to me when we talk about inclusive leadership is it's really just good leadership, right? I mean, the things you talked about are things that as leaders we should all be striving to do because it just gets results, especially when we're leading people who may be different than us. So I appreciate you sharing that. I'm kind of curious on some additional takeaways. I find it very fascinating, the work you did with FIFA, and I'm sure a lot of relevance when we talk about leadership, and it doesn't really get more diverse than FIFA, I'd imagine. Just with the global presence. You shared a few stories and examples of things that stood out. Anything else that really resonated with you when you think about leadership or diversity, or just getting results when it comes to people working with people who may be different than you through your experience with FIFA?
Yes, thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate not only your comment right now, I appreciate your support on LinkedIn. I know who you are. I really, really like how not only you support us, but you also engage with really good questions and really good comments. So I really appreciate you, brother. I see you. Great question, as usual with you. And I think it goes back to the differences between AI and the human connection. One of the things that really stood out during the 3 months working with the FIFA contract, our work was based around or focused around press conferences, as commented before. I mean, one of the things that really caught my attention on the first couple of press conferences was that there was nobody greeting at the press conference, and you imagine a room with 100 seats and the 100 seats get filled every single time. Imagine a room where people from, I would say, 30 to 50 countries are sharing the passion for soccer and are asking questions to soccer players and coaches at that level. You would think that the most important thing is how everybody feels around that room. And for me, that was one of the things that struck me the most, was that there was nobody greeting, there was nobody making sure that these people were comfortable and that the hospitality was at its finest. And even though that was not my job or my team's job, I made an effort, and I invite everybody to make an effort to be that person, to be that person that can show that if you're here with us, with you, then you should be able to receive the highest respect as a human being, and that includes the best hospitality that you can potentially get. So because I am obsessed with languages, I know how to say a lot of phrases in a lot of languages. People who know me well sometimes ask me, how is that even possible? And it is because of my need and my love, my obsession to connect with others. So I made an effort, and we hired specific individuals. Even when we hosted at press conference rooms, we hosted countries like Uzbekistan. And probably people are asking, what do they speak in Uzbekistan? Well, I didn't know, so I had to research that too. So now I know they speak Russian too, but they have their own language, and it's called Uzbek, and it's a beautiful language. I've never heard it before. So we hired somebody particularly through FIFA that would speak Uzbek, and when Uzbekistan was visiting the press conference room, they will be greeted by somebody who looks like them, but somebody that speaks their language, and they would make themselves at home. And I pushed even a little higher. we push to provide them with water and coffee, which for us and for FIFA was like, oh my God, how are we gonna do that, right? Well, we were able to do that. And I know it sounds kind of basic maybe, but believe me, it makes a massive difference in people and they smile. And just little things like that. So I will leave everybody with that thought of like, you think your hospitality or your interaction with other humans is good, it could always improve and it could always be pushed just a little bit higher. Because at the end of the day, that's all we got, right? Computers are taking over and all we got is our humanity.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. You know, a couple other questions come to mind. At the very top, you mentioned that this presentation or the conversation or ultimately, you know, the work is around business performance, which interestingly, in the beginning, when we first started, you know, talking about and frankly legitimizing DEI and diversity, what we tied it to is business performance, right? So I thought that was a really interesting comment and leading. Any thoughts on specific ways that some of these things tie to or enhance business performance or make a difference regarding business performance?
Yeah, and that's a really great comment because all these ties back to business performance. Because when we work with our own clients, it could be FIFA, it could be anybody. I always tell them that their problem is that there is not enough human observation. So what do I mean by that is when you are humanly observing, you're looking at your own flaws and your own lack, and that is something that you will be able to look at regardless of where you are in your company. It could be in sales, it could be in marketing, it could be in leadership, it could be in anything. At the end of the day, it's business performance. You will improve if you're able to observe what it is that I am doing wrong, where am I lacking, where can I push a little bit higher. And believe it or not, it all comes down to humanity, as in like your human touch and that compassion as a human being, how you interact with others, because that's what really makes a difference, right? If you're talking about sales, how you're interacting with that person, how are you making that person feel, that makes a huge difference, and that will be make it or break it when that person decides to pull the trigger with a contract with you or not. That's it. It's how they feel. Talk about marketing, you got to know how to talk to people. You got to know that you got to give them something. You can't just ask of them to purchase something without giving something in return. So what is that? Is it the way you talk? Is it a freebie? Is it swag? There's so many things in business that just keep going back to that human interaction and that human kindness, and I would say emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence and whatever. And that comes from your internal reflection. It's like, what's the work you're doing inside? And that way we can make that external. And at the end of the day, the result, business performance.
Very good. Thank you for that. All right, one more question, but I don't want to jump in if others have questions, but maybe a question, maybe a comment. One of the other things you mentioned early on that I found interesting is that people immediately make a determination about you when you come in the room, right? They assume certain things about language and all that. And we had another topic that used to be of important focus, I'll say it that way, was unconscious bias and the whole notion of bias. And that, in fact, there was a Howard Ross, who was a speaker of ours a while back, had a book and a whole body of work around that. So I just find that really interesting too. I can't believe that that's gone away. If anything, it might be even more heightened, the fact that we make immediate judgments about people based on early impressions from what they look like to what they say, how they say it, to even how they dress, all other kinds of things that factor into that. So you mentioned that at the top, and I thought that was pretty good as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's just this just the way it is sometimes, and we gotta work with it and deal with it. And I think Andrew, you mentioned about getting more examples from the FIFA World Cup. I can tell you that I've realized a lot of the biases that we have throughout the World Cup, all throughout just media overall. I saw a lot of hate. I saw a lot of uncomfort, I would say, or people disliking, for example, particular teams. I was very particularly impressed with the amount of rejection towards Argentina. And I was like, that's so just interesting how we get fixated. And that's something that I analyzed throughout the whole World Cup. It's like, why? I saw a lot of Latinos just really hating on Argentina. And I was like, that's so weird. And I realized that that's something that at least I can speak from my own personal experiences growing up in Mexico. There was this brainwash of like Argentinians are, just egocentric or snobby or because they're usually white or whatever. And I was like, man, it's just so crappy. It's such a low vibration that it just doesn't create any sort of a positivity around it. And I started questioning a lot. Close friends, family that were repeating the same things that being said on social media, and I learned that. I learned that we are being brainwashed when we're growing up, and we create these patterns and these stories, and then we believed in them, right? And when we're adults, we don't question them. So it's important to going back to the biases is like question yourself, question why you believe what you believe, because sometimes you'll realize that you perhaps not been believing the best thing. Yeah, and that will allow you to improve so much, just so much. And yeah, just open the question. It's like, why do I believe this, or why do I hate on this? And yeah, it feels better to live without hate. That's what I think.
Very good. That's very good. Well, if there are no others, I just say, finally, the last thing that landed on me was when you talked about leadership, adaptability, just the willingness to change, right? And that's something that has been, will be, and will continue to be important as relates to great leadership. So thanks for that. Anything else? Anyone else with a question?
Or a comment too.
Oh, other comments? Okay. Well, I'll say thank you again. I mentioned, Andrew, if you wanted to say a bit about our conference coming up, certainly would love to make sure that we get that on record as sharing.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you all attending this morning. And Felix, thanks again for walking us through some of the common traits of inclusive leadership and sharing your perspective on FIFA. We're excited about a conference we have coming up this year. We have so we have 4 breakout presenters in particular, very diverse group of folks who are going to be talking about a plethora of topics. We have a Generations in the Workplace panel that will be taking place as well. I believe we have a couple panelists who are on the call right now as well, Amanda and Tanisha. So excited to see them speak. And we have a keynote speaker in Olivia West that we're really excited about. So it should be an excellent conference. We're going to give you a good breakfast. We got lunch scheduled as well. So both should be tasty. We'll be at the Builtwell Event Center. This is September 22nd, 7:30 to 3:30. Would love to see you all there. If you have not already purchased your ticket, the Eventbrite link is in the thread, so please go ahead and do so. We'll also be having a roundtable discussion at the conference as well, which will be kind of a structured, facilitated dialogue at each table. We've learned that some of the best takeaways and lessons learned may be from the person you're sitting next to at some of these conferences. You just may not have the time to actually engage. So we're going to implement that at this conference as well. So I'm really excited. There's been a lot of work put into it, and I appreciate the team for supporting me and leading it out. So please feel free to grab a ticket if you haven't already, and appreciate the time.
All righty. Thank you so much for that, Andrew. As mentioned, Andrew and the committee have been doing a great job of planning a really thoughtful and next level conference for the Diversity Roundtable. So certainly looking forward to seeing you there. And I'll say as a quick plug, if you represent an organization that would like to come alongside and support in any way, we've got some great sponsorship opportunities that can help your organization shine. So would love to have you there as well. So again, thanks everyone. We are already teed up as a quick advance for our August meeting where we'll have Mr. Elliot Brooks as our presenter, and he's got some great content and other things prepared for us. So just a quick watch out for that. So again, thank you very much everyone for attending. Thank you, Felix, for joining us. After the work you did at the World Cup, kind of moving on fumes to get here. So thank you so much for being with us. Thanks everyone, and make it a great day.